And apologies to the audience. I didn't know it was that long.
I know. How's it been like transition to the role of so finance minister, opposition, then advisor to the president? I guess you've been doing that whilst in opposition too.
Yeah, but before that,
Yeah.
deputy minister and then
Okay.
and then minister.
Okay.
A privilege,
Mm.
from my, from Post-Imf and
Okay.
my current boss, whom I am advising,
Mhm.
with whom I started working.
Mhm.
In fact, when he was in Parliament and
Okay.
when I was doing policy,
Okay.
notably the VAT.
Okay.
So I was away for about 10 years out of the system. So a lot of people did not know
that you
about that presidency. Yes.
Mhm.
When I worked with Mr. Atua, who was my direct boss,
Mhm.
as I always say, gave me a lot of opportunities.
Mhm.
Of course, there were others like the late Salome, the late Pakwisi,
Okay.
Dr. Bochwe. But we have the great leader.
Okay.
Um,
So this is somebody
Dr.
you've known for
Terkper'S.
so long.
Yes, I have.
Well, if you just join us, we have former finance minister, Honorable Seth Terkper'S, in studio with us. He is currently advisor to the president. I wonder how the roles are from a finance minister position to what you're doing currently. What are the differences for you?
Yeah, if you take the three pillars
Okay.
on which the constitution is built in terms of governance,
Okay.
then you have, the balance of power between the executive, led by the president, the legislature, led by the Speaker of Parliament, the judiciary, led by the Chief Justice. Of course, we have the fourth estate, which is also mentioned. Lest my journalist friends think that I don't attach much importance to it. And given some of our past experiences, it was deemed necessary, to have this in place. Now, all of this, from the Speaker to the Chief Justice to the President, do have advisors.
Okay.
So I think if you ask me, the main difference is you must be able to distinguish between the advisory role and the execution role, which is entrusted to ministers.
Okay.
And that requires that you advise the president. But of course, the current minister,
okay,
just as the relations were used to persist between me and Dr. Dufo, who allowed space for me to operate.
Okay.
I was his deputy.
Okay.
It's important to advise us to offer your advice not just to the president, but to other, cabinet ministers.
Okay.
So, and you also have the privilege of being allowed, to attend critical meetings.
Okay.
So there is more of a tilt towards, consultative advisory approach to you being the one executing government policy.
Okay.
And so you need to strike that balance.
I see. So you are not your advice is not limited to the president alone. There are ministers who also consult you and take advice from you.
Yes, some of you are my contemporaries. And if you hold the unique thing about holding the Ministry of Finance position is that you deal with every sector.
Okay.
You deal with every ministry department.
Okay.
Which we call MDAs. And even an MDAs through the local government minister.
Okay.
Right. Who happened to have been my leader anytime I went to Parliament.
Okay.
So you can see the kind of rapport. Issues of security and the rest. You have some fair idea in terms of the promptness, sometimes the impromptu nature of requests when there is a conflict somewhere, and things need to be brought down,
Okay.
If I have any advice or experience, or if I hear something going on, of course, Honorable Muntakai was again my leader in Parliament.
Okay.
So you have this, nice overlaps from the past. So you pick the call, you see a certain some comment or others, and they are willing and free to listen to you as much as possible. Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
But not as much. I wonder when you had the ministry and when you're advising, they are not the same, not even close, are they?
Yeah, there are two
The
different
workloads are.
There are two different roles. The workload may not. One of the things I do is, coordinate the President's Advisory Group on economy with our eminent persons. Yes. So, but even there, you have to follow tradition.
Okay.
Because for what used to be the economic management team and the page which has been in the background, you are not in charge of the economy.
Okay.
You are supporting and you are helping the president. Right. So when they meet, for example, the policy presentations should be done by those who are in charge of policy, notably the Minister for Finance and the governor. It doesn't matter that I have been on the Bank of Ghana board before. I've worked with, many governors, both in policy and in politics. So this is something you have to be very conscious, because somebody gave you space when you were in office, to manage these relationships. And so part of experience is to know, right? Of course, if I pick the phone and I call, Honorable Atufosin, remember we have a special relationship as my deputy, right? But it doesn't mean that he is now seeing the bigger picture. He is now facing, for example, I faced some debts, after Post-Imf as a deputy, and then when I became minister, we put a few things in place to complement what Dr. Bojo had done. So you can take it that now he's facing a severe situation where it's a domestic default. Domestic investors in our bond market, which we were building, have defaulted. But he's the man in the field. So in terms of policy and what the president wants us to do on this situation, he takes the lead.
You've been a finance minister. So you were a finance minister, started by the second year. You were being thrust into an IMF program because of something that had happened that was out of your control. And you were...
Actually, we took over Dr. Dufo.
Okay. So that was when you were deputy.
When I was a deputy, yes. Okay. And then, of course, when it comes to IMF and other issues, remember that for 10 years I was in the IMF.
Yeah. But I was coming to that. Then I was also thinking.
So I've been on both sides of the table.
Yeah.
For example, I used to be among the technical staff who were behind, the table. What used to be called a structured adjustment program secretariat. Or ERP secretariat. In a technical role when I was working with Mr. Mr. Tuahoy at the National Revenue Secretariat. Later with Professor Mills, when he became board chairman and then he also the commissioner for IRS when they were taken out of the civil service, and he became vice president. And it was when he became vice president that I left. To join the IMF.
So you've been in the early days, the structural adjustment program, you played a role under that program.
I play a relatively junior role because I was just out of national service and working at the National Revenue Secretariat. But I would say my superiors, found it worthy to put me in charge of a very significant program, which was the introduction of the value-added tax. And that was my most, if you talk about being young and being thrust with responsibility, I would say that experience probably can only be rivaled by you being a minister.
I see. That's quite interesting. So you've been on the end of being the one who is actually holding the implementers of the IMF policy accountable. by being in by working with the IMF?
My bosses were
Mm.
in charge. We were then at the back taking notes and providing reports, and yes,
And working on
yes, to put things in proper
proper perspective.
Yes.
Then you were also a deputy minister. They became finance minister. You worked with that within an IMF program. How does it?
Actually, in the civil service, I went after the VAT was introduced. I was also I was actually employed and seconded to what today will be GRA.
Okay.
The National Revenue Secretariat, if you remember, was succeeded by the Revenue Agencies Governing Board, but that came into being when I had left the country. And then when I came back, under the direction of Professor Mills and now President Mahama advised, we quickly brought in the Ghana Revenue Authority because Ghana was lagging. And that is an insight which I gained when I was at the IMF and all that. So we did those reforms, merged, the VAT service and IRS. And the VAT service in particular, I held the deputy commissioner position next to the commissioner. The late Mr. Samuel before I left the country.
I see.
So I always tell every commissioner general that I'm an employee of GRA.
Well, then let me ask you, how does it feel like being a minister of finance under an IMF program? Because the assumption is that you're restricted sort of in terms of what you can do or what you ordinarily have wished you were doing. Is that true when you're under an IMF program and you are a finance minister?
There is the balance between what you wish you were doing, which is corrective in nature. Or which, from your experience, you think that you can convince cabinet that we should go in that direction. And I will come back to give you an example, a very practical example. There is the other things which you wish you were doing, like developing more infrastructure. Right. As we are working with the president, as you know, a vice and then a president, both Professor Mills and I remember school under trees and all. That's significant social infrastructure, and then you remember schools, hospitals, but also the big commercial projects that, these two leaders did. The Terminal 3, the first major expansion after the airport, Ports Authority funds being used to expand. We are into phase 3 of that gas processing plant when oil and gas came on board. So remember, when you are in fund, you go to many countries. And I had the privilege of going to what is now the BRIC economies. Right. Brazil, Russia, India. These are now, top, particularly India and China. South Africa has joined, African side. So you see the things they did to get out of being a developing country to becoming a middle-income country, and like China now becoming gradually becoming a first world country, despite its strength. You see the countries, Ukraine is a typical example that used to be part of the Soviet Union. When it collapsed, I did some missions there and saw how they had to accede to EU policies in order for them to become members of the. So when I became minister, that was when we became a middle-income country formally. So it means that at this point, I could bring some of these experiences and convince my boss we are now a lower middle-income country. Right. So alongside, I say this because alongside the program we had with the fund, to go back to your question, you remember we had what were the beginnings of a homegrown policy. In other words, we have oil. And I led in the debate, not in moving the motions, which Dr. Dufo did, in Parliament to debate what's used for oil. Right. We had gone HIPIC. Why did we go HIPIC? We were not paying our debts. Right. So we said never again. So we brought in a debt repayment account, which luckily had a nice name in the Constitution called a sinking fund, which we had never established. So we established it. Right. We had what you call buffers and stabilizers. Ghana will always face droughts or will face too much rain
Okay.
within the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And you pray for good rain. This morning I was listening to some news. You pray for good rain.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the food index is still the largest
Okay.
in measuring inflation and the rest.
Okay.
So if you have good rains and the good harvest, and you manage to market them well, food prices go down.
Okay.
If, however, it gets to the rainy season and you go into drought, that is a resource crisis.
We've had that problem before.
Exactly. We've had it several times. Remember
Okay.
the vintage one, some of the older ones remember was when you took graphic, and you go to the corner, and the first thing was the level of the water leak, if you remember.
Yeah.
Because of its significance for power
Okay.
at the time. So we said again, never again, let's not flare gas, let us set up a gas processing plant.
Okay.
This is the type of developments which you have to, to bring on board based on your experience. So we started implementing many of those things using the petrol revenue under the Petrol Revenue Management Act. And I remember at the workshop, the theme was, don't use petroleum revenue the way you use gold without seeing any significant change. So we set out the infrastructure fund, Exim Bank, and those are the mechanisms which the countries that moved from low income to upper income, it's by design. We always talk about Singapore, we quote it all the time. What did they do?
Okay.
So if you take I forget the name, the Sovereign Wealth Fund for Singapore and for Hong Kong and the rest, that's our what we attempted to set up under the Petrol Revenue Management Act, particularly its offshoot, which is the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, which should have been a one to go to the market to borrow for commercial projects, not the state.
Okay.
So that we remove that, guarantee that the state has to give to every SOE. If you're an SOE, if you're doing a project like, take the airport tax and use it to do the construction. We succeeded in doing with Terminal 3. Remember, under the current president. No doubt, one of the quick things he is doing now is to merge 2 and 3.
Okay.
Right. You see the construction and things
That's
based on the same airport tax, which has become larger.
Okay.
It has become larger because at the time we were doing Terminal 3, right, there was no contribution for Terminal 3. But now, because of the flights that, dock at Terminal 3 and the rest, we have more resources. So we're going back to the same lenders. We were paying them through the debt repayment account that we established. Okay. Right. So they are willing to give us money to expand. So if you exercise fiscal discipline, mind you are setting that money aside. You had alternative uses. You could have put it in the consumption budget. But you are looking at it. Right. Today is bringing in more revenue. We are expanding the airport. And hopefully, it's my wish that one day we will, go to Pram and do the national one.
Yes.
Yes. If you have traveled to Addis Ababa, then you see the path I'm talking about.
Yeah. That has always been the dream. But the reason I ask you that question is because, and you seem to have been saying that as long as you strike the balance, you will still be able to do some of the things you wish you had the free room to do, even under an IMF program. For you,
we had our homegrown policy.
Okay.
And mind you, they were not all favorable to the fund because they thought we were a developing country, maybe at the time, moving a bit ahead. Today, with the prospects of, more oil now coming from ENI and the rest who are back, I think you may have heard His Excellency say that if we strike a 4th, 5th oil field and produce more oil from what is in the ground under 1, 2, and 3, we may become an upper middle income country, and we have to prepare for that. Because the consequence of becoming a middle income country, is that you lose concessional financing and you lose grants.
Okay.
You lose the type of financing which you used to put up Akosomodal, compared to what you used to get an FPSO.
Okay.
Commercial loan versus concessional loan. You borrowed to repay over a period of 40 years, 10 years is a moratorium for the dam to be constructed to generate revenue. Right, and then you start a repayment for the 30 years. You will never get that now. Ghana will not get that now. Because otherwise, you are becoming an eagle our emblem.
I see.
You're an eagle, continue to behave like a chicken. You remember that proverb?
Yes.
Yes. So you have to realize that, look at our emblem and know that we are no longer a low-income country. And it's a formal process. I happen to have been a minister who, got elected to state that because of oil, because of rebasing, because of, gold price and others, your GDP has moved up, divided by your population. That's the measure that's used. You are a middle-income country, a lower middle-income country. And as the president said, we could be an upper middle-income country. So again, this is a sort of perspective based on my domestic, I started in the country, and then external experience, which I brought to bear, under President Mahama in particular, with contribution for my former boss, if I do for himself. I had diverse experience, working with commercial banking, working with, the BOG offshoot in London, and then coming back. So he's had a unique, opportunity of having been a deputy governor, and minister. I believe that he's the only one who holds that, yes, except for a deputy position, which I recall Nana Mansa was a deputy at the Ministry of Finance and became a deputy at the Central Bank.
Okay. So you did this because by 2016, everything that you were thinking, in collaboration with the economic management team, and also with your deputy, 2 deputies.
And under the leadership of His Excellency.
His Excellency.
Let's forget, because you cannot execute here.
That's why I said economic. So interestingly, one of your deputies was Kesala Tofosun, who is now finance minister. Now, you had to hand over to an MPP government. They took these things that you talked about, your vision for how you were using the IMF program then to perhaps create a platform for Ghana to get to the point where Singapore
got to. How we were using
to.
the IMF program to just, sorry for the interjection, how to use the IMF program to continue the stabilization.
Okay.
But how to use the new resources that you have to build a more stable economy.
Okay.
To build, 1, stabilizers, 2, buffers, and it's used in the PSI. These terms I use in the PSI document, which I sent to you.
Okay.
So it means that they shouldn't be new to us, because we had used the petroleum revenue to set up these stabilizers. And we said, never again should we default for our debts to be forgiven. That was a HIPIC lesson. So we established the sinking fund under the Constitution. And we used it to pay down the first sovereign bond, substantial amount. In fact, the MPP used the last 200, I've said this several times, to pay off, right? So why sweep it when it has had significant benefits, and we would have moved to B+, and then continued. If we had continued, then you could borrow, but then you continue to repay, your debt that falls due. But we went back to be worse than HIPIC.
And that was the point. That was the point I was coming to.
Yes.
That you had all these buffers in place, that you were hoping that they would continue to build, and then the person who takes over from them would have been in a better position than they, perhaps what you left to them, they would have grown it. But it looks like your former deputy didn't inherit that at all. He inherited a different situation altogether.
Yeah, even worse. Even worse than the combined team led by Dr. Dufo inherited. Remember, the same, friends on the other side left single spine, don't forget.
Yes.
Huge debt.
Yeah.
And we had to issue, let me be very specific, Dr. Dufo had a presence of mind to stop using just the treasury bills to be clearing those significant long term. So he converted part of what used to be treasury bills into the bonds, the 3-year and then 5-year bonds. So I always make that distinction, that the credit goes to him for that, right? And based on his international experience, right?
Okay.
What I did was to take those bonds and longer ones and put them on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Okay.
In order that Ghanaians would have their money through the pension funds, for example, invested.
Okay.
Right? So that the money is not sitting down and SNIT is giving you some small amount of money because the main instrument was to lend it to government for, now there's a bigger picture. And then many Ghanaians on their own started to buy the bonds through their banks and the rest. And we collapsed that structure. But the consequence of collapsing that structure, right, unfortunately with antecedents from the same, champions, of reform today, was that we defaulted. And we defaulted again, but the burden did not lie on foreigners to give us debt relief. The burden came home, the chickens came home to roost. And what did we have?
It was the Ghanaian.
The Ghanaian that suffered a haircut through the investments, through building a solid domestic bond market. So that's the progress we stopped. So if you compare, what, Dr. Dufour faced, what I faced, right, or working with Dr. Dufour and continuing, I would say, even in terms of hardship, in terms of the suffering and others, right, Ghanaians have suffered more in terms of stopping these initiatives.
You're saying that
through the haircuts and the rest.
You're saying that between the time when we took on the IMF program that just ended until it ended now, the situation was worse. It's worse far worse.
But all the indicators, you heard all the indicators were not, all the benchmarks were not being met, all of them. So it had to take honorable forcing, and I always make the point that countries have been through this before, from Sri Lanka, Argentina, some of them more powerful than Ghana. Zimbabwe and others have gone through this default scenario, before. Some of them are still in it, a decade or so on. And that is because the market you destroyed will punish you if you don't take quick corrective action. Right. So even though the combined team of Dr. Dufour, myself, and let me compliment, my then colleague, Honorable Fifi Kwete, before he became MP, was my colleague at the ministry. What we had to face, was softer in terms of debt relief, forgiveness. Part of the forgiving that was even flowing into the budget under, the Kufuor administration, His Excellency Kufuor's administration. Here, we were left naked.
Naked?
Of course.
There was nothing coming in for you.
Yeah, we took the heat. Our citizens took the heat because they had invested in the government bonds and they had to suffer haircuts. And much of their, not just what they put in directly, right, but what they put in through their pension and through giving to the pension funds to come and invest so that they can get more income. Right. So this is the sort of calamity that we went through. And I'm afraid, therefore, if, today we have, our opponents, pontificating in quotes as if, they manage the economy, well, I think we should explain this to Ghanaians. They collapse the banking sector. Right. Yes, collapse it completely. Not completely, but substantially. Yes. And then so those are some of the things facing on our forcing. But the point I was making is that we need to bear a bit. Because if we hadn't taken those quick, big, substantial payments to regain access to the market, remember, single spine, we were continuing to rely on, treasury bills to pay, just as from the beginning of last year.
Yes.
It was only treasury bills. So, but if you paid quickly, right, you will have access to the market, which we now have. Hopefully, by next year, we'll have access to the standard bond market. Of course, we handle the standard bond market better. So there's no reason to use the MPP experience to say that Ghana should not go back to the standard bond market. Because US goes to it, China goes to it. You can Google the ratings for CDB, the ratings for China, they go to the market to borrow.
That's an interesting. There are those who feel that maybe for the rest of this government's term, you should never go to the external bond market.
If the mighty US borrows from its own market, the New York Stock Exchange, which is the largest, and from other stock exchanges. If, in spite of their oil wealth, Dubai finds it fit, right, to create a sovereign wealth fund to develop infrastructure, massive infrastructure, which has benefited them. And if, my last point, Saudi Arabia found it fit to take its oil revenue that is sitting under Saudi Aramco to be able to set up a sovereign wealth fund that can borrow to develop faster.
Okay.
I see where they are coming from. We have defaulted in others.
Yes.
Right. But then I always say that let's compare it to households. Let's compare it to businesses.
Okay.
Right. I always say that you can ask your shareholders, to refit, this nice place, the building, refurbish it and everything. But they invested already. And of course, you were going under sanctions. I know very well. Right. So you had to borrow to do this and then hope that you get more advance. It's the experience of households.
Okay.
If you want to buy a car, you go and take a loan. If your salary is big, you ask your bank standing order, furniture, right? What is referred to as capital goods. Capital goods apply to households.
Okay.
But they are the sofa, your bed, for those whose incomes are low, who cannot take money immediately, and you take a salary advance, you take a loan to buy those. Sometimes the loan can come from a relative or somebody. But you must learn to pay, or you won't go back. Even schooling, which is long-term investment. How many of us have not probably wept in a corner seeing our parents borrowing, being insulted and whatever, to take us through school, right? And then if you have had children, and I know you have young children, you consume all your salary, the child will fall sick. If you don't create buffer for the family. You see where the word is coming from. If you don't create a buffer to stabilize your expenditure, to stabilize the misfortunes that may come, illness. You can't stop your child from 3, 4, 5 years from going to play. They'll go and play, get a catarrh, get all those, get bruises. You must have that medicine in a drawer, all right? So I think that's how countries behave. So I beg to differ. I think the discussion should be, and U.S. is able to borrow for 30 years.
Okay.
When you say you borrow for 30 years, it simply means that you borrow and you repay over 30 years. And when you clear first year and then the 30 becomes 29, then you borrow, right? Because you have a good record. And so you are building your infrastructure as you go along, as you repay your loan. And that's what we wanted to do with the debt repayment account. So I beg to differ. We may have more resources, but we are not at a point yet where we can meet all our recurrent expenditure, especially giving more Ghanaians affordable, healthcare, giving more Ghanaians opportunity to go to school, giving more Ghanaians that social part of it, and reserve enough money on a year-by-year basis, to build massive infrastructure. Imagine if we were using, the balance on the cap, the amount allocated by Parliament strictly to build Terminal 3. Imagine how long it would take. But with your discipline to put the money aside, the repayment of the loan amount, which is bearable, aside, so that every year it comes and you pay, and Bank of Ghana pays on their behalf, we are now able to go to the market to expand it. We couldn't have done it on the budget alone. And few countries, not even the mighty US. Remember, the president before Trump, did infrastructure, yes, which is infrastructure bonds to fix US, old crumbling infrastructure, as they call it, and which President Trump is continuing.
For those who are against you going to the external bond market, a few things they propose. One, like you're doing currently, work on the domestic market. Secondly, the revenues from gold. Can the dollars that you are earning from gold be used for those purposes rather than for them using it to show up the CD among others? To them, those are the alternatives, and perhaps you have to continue the austerity. control spending.
Let's go back to the beginning of our conversation. I did say that sometimes the rains will fail.
Okay.
And we'll have to import more. And that means that the first major preoccupation of the Gold Board, right, which we now have, and Bank of Ghana in conjunction with Ministry of Finance, is to build buffers.
Okay.
Right. Yes, you can go and claim that money to start doing his schools. You can go and claim that money to do what if you get a drought? Right. And you have less reserves to import to complement. Exchange rate will go up because the market know that you don't have the exchange rate. And when exchange rate goes up, right, and black market flourishes more than the Bank of Ghana reserves, you know what happens, right? Precisely what will happen is that those who have bought the dollars which they need to bring in the food, rice and the rest, will jack up prices. Inflation will go up, right? So why don't you do the two things concurrently?
Okay.
Why don't you? Yes, I agree with them. Put some money aside, and we did. Remember that the petroleum revenue had the stabilization fund, which is meant to cure this. And then when the stabilization fund is increasing and reaches a certain level under the law, right, under the law, the minister can go, right, and ask Parliament to cap it. But when you cap it, you are required to use the excess to build infrastructure. That is why I agree with them. That when you have protected yourself with the buffers and stabilizers against domestic incidents like, drought and the rest, and against you don't control cocoa prices. We saw what happened, right? Beginning of this year. Yes, when we dare to reduce, you don't control the price. Even the gold, you need to build the buffers when the price is high. But when stability comes for the US and the dollar strengthens, gold prices go down. And so you don't sweep everything in there to go and build infrastructure. Okay. You can't run an economy. I always say you can't run an economy for 2 and definitely 3-4 years without one crisis or the other. Right? And I've said this in this studio.
That's a short crisis period.
Of course. But look at when we started. Look at the positive which we are talking about. It was going on and on and on. Did we bring the fight in the Middle East on ourselves? Okay. So you have to, you'll be taking unawares. Global financial crisis, COVID, now there's Ebola. And pretty soon we'll probably see lines, people traveling and coming from those countries. Right. So if you have this experience and we say crises are inevitable, so prepare for them. Right. It is in conjunction with, yes, if you have money and it's a bit more in excess and you have paid down your old debt, of course you can take some of that to build, low level things like repairing elementary schools. Remember Professor Morris's school under trees, it was mainly from the budget, but even the budget could not sustain it, we had to buy. School under trees meant that it's not just about new schools, but it's about the old colonial and other schools which were crumbling. Repair them, fix the roof for the kids.
I see. But, okay, so at what point...
We may have to go to PS. So of course, we are having the conversation.
Yes, and I'll come to PC, that one shortly, because it's an important aspect of the discussion. Because the question now is, at what point would you decide to go to, if you're doing external market? And what cost would that money be given to you at, knowing that you're still not out of the woods yet?
Let's go to the beginning of our conversation. I may have my views. I may have what I did, right? What Dr. Dufo did, but none of us face domestic default.
Okay.
It's only the Minister for Finance who is looking at the figures.
Okay.
And remember, when we defaulted, we also went down with our ratings, right? So until we recover those ratings reasonably, you can go to the bond market, but when junk ratings. So you go and borrow, yes, but you go and borrow at 15%, 20%. You might as well, that's where you might as well do your treasury bills.
Okay.
If that's all that you're going to get. But remember, you are not going to be getting the forest component. So I'll defer to what the Minister for Finance says. He is looking deep into the figures. He has the projections and everything. I get access to some of these things and the rest. But he and his advisors, and the fund agrees that get your ratings moving further up.
Okay.
Rather B minus from junk, be B minus, B plus, right? There's a possibility like Botswana and the rest, you may get to, start a triple A minus and whatever.
Okay.
When you are rising in that, because the foreigners who are going to buy your bond are watching. When you are rising, if he had gone early, yes, he could have borrowed, right? But he's saying that his trajectory is, what will be needed to support borrowing again so that we don't default requires that we should probably wait till next year. If the situation improves, he can come back and say, we have done better earlier than I thought, right? So let's leave the timing, to the minister and his technical people, because that's what cabinet has accepted, and that's what's in the fund program. We are not in a hurry. Remember, last point. Remember that if we did well with the domestic bond market that we opened, we have what we call non-resident investors. They were the same investors when we established we're coming to buy our domestic bond. They were bringing forex.
Okay.
Yes. So if we open it, if the domestic bond market is doing well, the interest rate is good and whatever, and we open it to say the same is standard, that may even test our ability. Because if we are able to pay them, remember some of them were the ones who were preventing it from going to the fund because we borrowed their money and we didn't pay them when they wanted to exit. Right. So I think that I would plead, that, Ghanaians and in particular, our people, you are not seeing what the minister is saying, the numbers and the rest, the deep numbers. I see some, when they are published, for example, I can interpret some of them. But at least so long as cabinet has accepted that advice, even the fund had accepted, that scenario, we should be patient, and allow things to settle. And then at appropriate time, we may be back on the external bond market, but not in a naked way in which we did before we went HIPIC, and not in a naked way in which we did and defaulted on those bonds. He's probably also, that's another point, probably putting the mechanism in place. His Excellency in the State of the Nation said we need a debt repayment account, we need a sinking fund so we don't default again. It's his responsibility to make sure that that money is available not to pay down the debt in big numbers, 500 million at a time, as we were doing and depriving, but we are able to do it within a floor and a ceiling. His Excellency used that term, and it was, if you don't want your debt to exceed 55% or 60% maximum, what it means is that you don't have to pay all the 60. But anything that goes above the 60, you have to clear it. You have to pay. Anything that falls you above the 60 or 55, to be comfortable, 55% of GDP, you have to clear it. And that's the essence of putting money aside in a sinking fund so that you can manage the market, not on an episode basis, right? You've defaulted, so now you are rushing debt suspension and all that. No, but do it in a very calculated, planned manner, and that there's always money for you to pay. After all, what determines your credit worthiness? If you go for salary advance and you say, I'll pay back, sometimes in order not to be tempted, you tell the bank, okay, I'll give you a standing order. When my salary comes, you deduct and pay. Yes. The next time you go and ask for school fees, they'll give it to you. Because your record is good.
And that's what is important. Honorable Seth Terkper'S,
so we need to balance. Yes, we need to balance there are different things that are hitting each other. Okay. But we need to balance it.
Now let's come to the PCI, because let's say we have visited what was there. First of all, how well did we do at the ECF? Because I heard the minister speak about a derailed program.
It was derailed, yes. It was derailed because we were not meeting many of what we call the benchmarks, the structural measures and the rest, which we agreed with the fund.
We're able
Luckily,
to
we are back
salvage
on.
that.
Yeah, we are back on track,
Okay.
and hopefully, it will be acknowledged during the 6th review. So, in as much as I may be excited at what is going on under President Mahama, we should all be patient for July, because in July, it is only in July that, to preempt your question, we are going to we have told the fund that we are coming to the board and saying we don't want to be repeating this IMF programs anytime. We know the reason why we come to the fund. We go to the fund when we have drought. We go to the fund when there's too much rain.
Okay.
And it destroys the farms. We go to the fund when we are hit by war. We go to the fund when our gold prices go down, our cocoa prices go down, and the rest. So we want to introduce what economists call counter-cyclical. Some of these are cyclical. In other words, they come in cycles. The rainy season comes in every year in cycle.
Okay.
Whether it fails or succeeds, it will come. And we call it the rainy season, even if it's not raining. The Hamatan season comes. That's the dry season. Luckily, we have 2 seasons. Other countries plan for 4 seasons. Right? Spring, autumn, winter, and then what? Yeah. This plan for 4. We have to plan for 2.
Okay.
Right. So I think we can do the 2 things. So we are saying to the fund that Ghanaians are fatigued. This counting 18, we don't want to do the 20th program when we are celebrating our 70th anniversary.
Okay.
So we want to do our own, in quote, homegrown effort again.
Okay.
Right. We have learned, from our first attempt today, we have learned from HIPIC and from default and whether we know what aches the economy. Okay. Because the things that ache the economy are the ones we discuss with the fund. Okay. And they set as conditionalities. They are not essential. You haven't paid your debt. So there's a program you agree with them to pay the debt, which our noble forcing, was doing. You couldn't pay on a monthly basis. Why should they say pay 500? Instead of paying 100 over 5 months, they say pay 500. And you have to cough. So now we are going back and say, okay, luckily for us, it's not like a clean plate. No, because when we got oil, we set up some of these structures. So we need to refine them now. And hopefully we'll get lithium, right? More oil fields. So we now go to the fund and say, look, we attempted this. This is our success. This is where we failed. As a nation, even if we were not in charge of that failure, people outside are saying Ghana, they are not saying NPP, they are not saying NDC. So this is our program, right? We want to evolve our own program, right? Whatever name we call it, right? And we had attempted it already in the past. So work with us on that program. But it will not be the conventional IMF program. It will be our program. But because you also have people with experience who go to countries and whatever, right? And secondly, because we would have to do Article 4, and you will come and have a look at our books, whether we are in a program or not, we will discuss our program to stabilize the economy on our own, to build buffers on our own, right? But we discuss it with you. We want your people with experience. And, in the fund, there are former finance ministers, there are former who have managed economies. They poach all those people. Especially when they lose, right? Yeah, they poach them. So there are people who have very practical experience, right? In fact, the deputy director for Africa who came, to join the mission was telling me that he was a minister in Ukraine. And I did missions in Ukraine, so I know, so I was sharing fond memories of Kiev. So they have these people around the table, right? So we're saying that this is our program. Let's sit down. Just as we use the own group policy to negotiate our IMF program, we want your collaboration. And they have guidelines. That's a beautiful thing. They have guidelines for countries that do not want to come to the fund and borrow, right, on their own. And there are a lot of countries now, including Africa, Rwanda, and the rest. They are under the PCI, which used to be called PSI. So support. It used to be called support. Now it's coordination. That's why the S is. So that's the exercise. So they're going to the board and saying, okay, Ghana has ended the program. Hopefully, we know the board will approve. But Ghana says they want to do a PCI. Ghana says they will prepare and present a draft, approved by cabinet and hopefully parliament, all right, as the policy to manage the ups and downs, right, to manage external shocks and whatever through buffers, through stabilizers, through debt repayment account, because they don't want to default again and whatever. It's our program. We are only asking the fund, to use its diverse opinion, diverse expertise, including the countries that are now implementing it.
Okay.
Right? There are several countries which are implementing it. Okay, I mentioned some, especially the Eastern European countries and the rest. Right? Let us learn from your experience in dealing with these countries, the BRICS, the emerging, market countries and the rest, who was upon a time where, and let us share that experience with you and see what you can contribute. And then you can come and monitor. After all, we'll be accountable to Parliament. We'll be accountable to Cabinet, that the minister and his team. So yeah, you can come and work with us, do the normal review, and make suggestions to us where we are having difficulty, where we are succeeding. That's it. That's the framework.
Interesting. What you describe, in fact, I recall the famous words of the Supreme Court of Ghana. Oh, advice is advice. You can decide to take it or not take it. I know you know where that is coming from. Question is, because under the ECF, the IMF, I get the sense, has a certain level of control, asking you to meet certain criteria, maybe indicators, among others. Under this program, how much control would the IMF have?
Let me draw an analogy again.
Okay.
Despite your university education and whatever, you have a cousin,
okay,
or even a brother who is doing well as a businessman.
Okay.
Right? You go to him because you are on joking basis. So it's like, oh, Charlie, bro, this time it's tough. My son is going to school, he go to school, but things are rough. So he gives you some money.
Okay.
A loan. He can dash it to you. Okay. But maybe you've been there twice already. So you say, oh, me too, things are tough. Let me give you a loan.
Okay.
You think you can go back if you don't repay the loan? You'll be back in an IMF program. So the important thing is for us to work with them. So we don't want to go back to the IMF. That's what Ghanaians say they don't want. So it's up to us Ghanaians to have. But the other reason is that, remember that because we defaulted and the rest, and we're in a fund program, one of the reasons we're in a fund program was that the external, we're just talking about external bonds. Yes. Those who are going to buy our bonds, they are listening to the IMF to give them an indication of how we are performing than we telling them.
Okay.
They are listening to the fund to tell them that, oh yeah, they are doing well. They are not going to default again and whatever. And then for our ratings to go up. You heard the Reuters news and whatever, the ones lately.
Yes.
Yeah, the commentary that they were running. The same, yes. So their opinion still carries weight. Okay. So we are saying an intermediate step, right? Because those people are looking, one reason, it's not the only reason, because those people are looking to the IMF for validation of we saying we can manage our own affairs. They know that you can come and hype them. Excuse me, as some may have done in the past. So we need that collaboration. Moreover, it's our right as members of the fund. That's what membership of the fund is. You can ask for advice, and later we can go into the PCI provisions, maybe in another session, So what is it that the reason we are going to the board and saying we want to do this, you have an instrument. They are set up to help countries. So we have this instrument. We would have our program. We will discuss it with you. We can agree and disagree on certain things. Right? But if we disagree with them, remember, they will come and evaluate it based on what we say. And for now, before the market starts listening to the Minister for Finance or even His Excellency the President, they are looking to what they call independent.
Okay.
Right.
So you're seeking that independent opinion.
There's nothing wrong with doing it. It's like if you have an external auditor to come and audit your books, it's not because you don't have good accountants here. But because if you want to go and borrow in the stock exchange, they will listen to the external auditor what he say because he's independent, in quote. Yes.
You've been to, okay, so we've been to Ghana as a country. I think there are different counts. Some people put it at 17, some put it at 18. Different IMF programs.
I think 16.
16.
I think 16.
Okay, so 16. We've done 16.
Because assume it's 18.
Okay.
We are saying we are 70. Remember what I said? We are 70 years old. So we don't want to go 20 before we sour 19 before we sour our 70th anniversary. We should be able to beat our chests, next year, March, and say that, hey, we've been out of the IMF program and we are doing well. And, yes, that will be the best accolade.
What would the PCI do that the ECF has not done for us? What would it do for us differently and put us in a situation where we do not have to go to an IMF program?
And that is the reason we don't have to be bothered too much.
Okay.
Because the PCI,
yes,
which used to be PSI,
okay,
will follow the same path.
Okay.
The IMF has simply said that gold prices go up and gold prices go down. Why do you think they've been monitoring our reserves? Why do you think that they're asking Bank of Ghana to, write off under the IFRS standards and all those stuff? Remember I told you they have accountants, economists, even engineers and things among them. If they don't have them at the fund, they have them at the World Bank. The World Bank has real sector people, engineers and the rest. Right. So, what is it that's different? Right. Those are validations we have to establish for ourselves, which is why we have an Auditor General.
But what would you listen to our Auditor General?
I was Minister for... Oh, yeah, I'm just coming to that. I was Minister for Finance. When I appear with the Auditor General at the Public Accounts Committee, who do you think the public is more interested in listening to?
You.
I'm sorry. You know that they are glued to listen to what the Auditor General is saying about my performance.
Yes, that's true.
For validation.
That's true.
Right, so we are saying, if we are going to do this, and we are going to do all the sacrifice, in the interim, one day we may decide, to do, IMF goes to UK, they go to in the US to do Article 4, because they are members of the fund. Has anybody heard about them? Because even if they get into crisis, they are able to get out of it. Right. So I'm saying that, what do we have to lose? In any event, the fund will be pronouncing on your economy. We are required to submit data to the IMF office, which is in Accra here. They have a permanent, we get a permanent residence. Yeah. It's not too far from me.
What will be our commitment under IPCI? What are we saying? If we do decide, because you said by July, we would have presented a program, our program, to the board of the IMF board. What will be our commitment under the PCI?
Let me pause at this stage and say that they won't be radically different from what we do at our fund program. But when it comes to specifics, I would rather like to pause and wait for the process that is going on now, right? Which is the Minister for Finance is going to go to Cabinet with what he thinks should be the framework for the PCI, right? We are likely to go to, because it's a significant economic policy under our constitution, it may have to be part of media review, it may be part of, the annual budget, which is in November. So I would rather wait, but for those who may be interested, there's a lot of, PCIs under the fund program. But I wouldn't want to preempt because I'm privileged to some information. I don't think it would be fair for me to be talking, too much at this stage. But when the promise I can give you is that when the document is released, yes, if you invite a minister and he's too busy, I'm sure he wouldn't mind at all if I come and then help with the explanation.
I see. That's interesting. The PCI, you said there was a policy support
It used to be policy support instrument.
Now
it's a policy coordination
instrument. Now,
yes, because the fund is taking a different view after many years saying, what are we supporting? We are not giving them money. We are not giving them. We are rather coordinating with them. Right? to comment on their own program. So it's a coordination effort now. That's the only rationale for the.
Are there some success stories we can look to and
Oh,
say
yes. Oh, yes.
it's worked here?
It's worked, and sometimes there are reversals.
Okay.
So again, if you go to the website, I think we love data. If you go to the website, you see countries that have been in PCI or PSI, and countries that are, I think in Africa, I saw a few countries. I think I closed that page. In Africa, who are currently, Rwanda is a good example.
Okay.
They're under, yes, a PCI.
Okay.
I think Botswana used to be, but I know definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So it's on the IMF website. Maybe we can do, and sift through some of, the conditions under some of those policies and discuss them.
So now the question then comes up, because you presented to us an idea back in around 2014, thereabouts, when we were going to the IMF program on behalf of the government then led by the same President John Dramani Mahama. You were on course until you lost the elections in 2016. 2016, a new government comes in. We are back to this place where we are having another.
I did suggest that if that IMF program, which we started, ends, we should do a PSI. I was in public, yes.
Yes.
And that was actually also, as I said, the rationale for starting the home policy.
Because I heard President Mahama also say that this should be our last IMF program. But
yes.
The problem is not really in terms of whether you go to the IMF or not. It seems the problem is our political cycle, which is that you could be out of government, another government can come in. You erode everything you have. You start all over again.
I think
how would the PCI cure this?
I think the NDC, and to be a bit partisan at this stage, needs to be careful because we have a saying that you don't go to the first stage 3 times.
Okay.
So our opponents have been to the first stage twice, and the public is aware. And the most painful one is a haircut.
Okay.
So yeah, despite what they're saying and what they may be thinking about corrective measures when they win. We shouldn't give them opportunity. Their record should remain that they took us to HIPIC, and then to haircuts and all that, and we have taken the country out of it, and we are proposing better alternatives. And we have the homegrown experience. And if you read President Mahama's State of the Nation address, and there's a lot in that State of the Nation address which tells you the direction of the country. Yes. So I don't think we should give them the comfort. At all, yeah.
But they could be back. And even within your party, there could be people who could rise to power, who disagree with this approach, take us out of it.
But that's democracy.
Send us back.
No, that's democracy. I'm sitting here talking, right? I don't think I'm bitter at some of the people who oppose what we were doing. At the time, it's quite open. No, because I've had some exposure, in all modesty. I've had some exposure which many of those people never had. I've traveled to countries that were developing countries, and I worked on them when I was at a fund, and I used to study what we were doing. And I remember doing the CDB loan. We went to China, myself and the president's brother, Cadman, together with some BOGMs of 14 times. And we even got this. Around that time, I was looking around carefully at what they were doing because they were following the BRIC model. And they were in the market borrowing. Yes. Right. So I think that the NDC, for me, when it comes to transformation of the economy, all the way from Nkrumah's era, what infrastructure are we repairing today? After 70, is it not Nkrumah's infrastructure? Right. As enhanced, now we can say boldly, and that's what should be our mantra. As enhanced boldly by Mirs Mahama and Mo Mahama. From school infrastructure to airport infrastructure to port infrastructure. We should be talking about these things. We are repairing the roads. How many roads, were done compared to, remember the gang of, are we not doing a very gang of 4 or gang of 6? History is repeating itself. Right. A lot of uncompleted road projects that I see Honorable Agboja going around and the rest. Yeah. It's just a repetition of a gang of 4 or gang of 6. Teshin. Today we drive to, Peduase. That road was through Medina Adenta was no one side was partly down one lane and one. When we came to power in 2009, we shouldn't forget. Right. So I'm confident that we have more record in terms of transformation of the economy. We took Ghanaians what we were going to do with the oil revenue. Right. We did it. We started it. Who came to dismantle the structures, which resulted in the default and all that. So no, I don't think that we should relent at all. But we should rather, look at our experience and beat our chests proudly and say that we've always cleaned up your mess.
But ultimately, then you understand those who, on an ideological basis, then are against an IMF program because they think the most powerful force should be the electorates. That as long as the electorates are not carried along, you can do as many IMF programs as possible.
That's what many people think. I've been a left of center from student movement through all of this. I don't talk much about that side of it.
Okay.
We are better builders. Let's prove the point by stabilizing the economy and not losing the election through infighting.
Stabilizing the economy and not losing the election through infighting.
Stabilizing the economy to correct the mess so that Ghanaians can compare. Okay. That we're able to go beyond, all the debts that was. We've paid some of the debts. That's what we should be talking about now. I hear them doing a lot. The IPP debt. Is that not what is bringing back the peace? We should be talking and reminding Ghanaians about that. Not that we want to live in the past, but it is part of our present record.
You fear infighting might be the biggest challenge of your party.
Well, we are in a democracy. We are in a democracy. And personally, I come from a stronghold. I come from a constituency that has never gone right of center since independence. And so, without being complacent, the candidates know that when we win the primaries, you are likely to be an MP. So I know that. So we've always had it. Yes. Who says that we've never really? After all, it's about power. It's about, wanting to serve the party, wanting to serve the nation. So I think the elders, that's why we have the elders. I'm sure they will come in, to cool tempers.
Because what's the fear with your party now? President Mahama somebody has to succeed President Mahama in the upcoming
I think I have too much. I think I have a lot of experience to, working. Remember, I work in policy and whatever and all that. I was an assembly member just like President Mahama and all that. So I know. And I've just given you the example of mine. It's tough. It's rough. In our constituency, we had to constitute myself, Honorable Mate, and and a few had to constitute ourselves into peacekeeping, team to go around our 3 constituencies to make sure that after the election, things calm down. Yes, but as I said, there are many of our constituencies, where you win the primary, and unless you don't go and mend fences or do other things,
So for your elders need to rise to the occasion.
They will. What I'm saying, they've always risen to the occasion. And some of them are still around. I don't want to be mentioning names there. Some of them have been elders for a very long time. Others have joined them. So I think we'll prevail. Democracy is at work. Of course, I'm not endorsing the insults and others. No. Yeah.
Let me conclude then by asking you, because I need to let you go now.
Yeah, we can. First time we come back for
talk about it. Because one of the things I was thinking about this morning is opening the phone lines. Oh no, but I wanted to ask you briefly. Because
no, my apologies. Because I have.
Yes,
so I promise. They can leave their questions. We'll come and do Q&A.
What is happening to the city?
To the city?
Do we know that? Because there are reports about the depreciation of the city. That's.
Is crude oil prices not going down? And is it not because Mr. Trump or President Trump says that there seems to be solution on the horizon, right? Okay, so the city goes with gold prices, it goes with the dollar, and gold goes with the gold prices, go with the dollar. Okay. So if things are looking good for the U.S., going into their midterm relations and the rest, and the city, and the dollar strengthens. Yeah, our exchange rate is likely because gold competes against the dollar. But I heard the governor, I think we should be saying that we are building buffers. We built, buffers.
Mm.
Yes, and it's part of their responsibility. I'm not, so I think that we should be, and that is the reason why we must build buffers.
Mm.
You build buffers when the times are good. You don't build buffers when times are rough.
Yesterday was Africa Day. Do you agree? Okay, so I know your own, because you don't say it a lot, but you tend to agree a lot with the thoughts of the Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. One of them is that and you have worked in certain places, that unless Africa works together, we'll keep going through this cycle.
Let me tell you, I must admit that because of the work I do more on the fiscal side and all those, and all that, sometimes I don't have time to look at the ideological aspects of things.
Okay.
But I can advise those who are like me, just read the insights. Uncle Pratt is there too to do that work for you, so you can just, and he doesn't mind you reading.
But do you agree, from your perspective, looking at numbers, looking at the way African economies are built and everything, that there's a need for a closer, a united front when it comes to, because you've been to conferences, listening to African leaders and everything?
Yes, there is. And my thinking, frankly, on the economic front is South Africa should be leading. South Africa should be fighting countries like Ghana, off the record, Ghana and the rest.
Mm-hmm.
South Africa is a leader.
They should take the lead.
Yes, and it should form the African tigers to let other economies like Ghana, which have the potential, smaller populations, grow, and the migration will stop. We need our own lions, what used to be called African lions, which is the equivalent of the tigers, or the Emirates. They are taking our resources to go and develop. We have so many Chinese cars. Why can't South Africa export cars to Africa? And create jobs. So I agree. I agree that we need to come together under AU and under, but it's a challenge for ECOWAS and Africa-wide. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Somebody is talking about running away, that you are staying put, you will not run away because there's nothing to run away from. He still lives in Ghana and still contributing towards the better Ghana we are building.
I do travel.
But I guess you know the reference and everything.
I'm telling you that I do travel and I come back. And the minister has, as the president who has approved. So I accompanied them to Washington for the spring and annual meeting and said, well, my family still lives. So I know where it's coming from. But no comments.
Seth Terkper'S special advisor to President Mahama. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Yeah.
And,
like you said,
thanks for the good work.
Yes.
No, I'll come for it.
Yes. In fact, especially after the media budget review and we have a sense of what the PCI will be.
Absolutely.
It will be nice to have you here.
Okay, you are helping me
to
not
answer
talk too much.
to answer a lot of questions. Thank you. I was Seth Terkper'S special advisor to President John Dramani Mahama. He joined us in studio this morning for a quick conversation on the economy. Post-IMF, our